Hi there, happy hump day. It's Wednesday. So having just recently got back from spending time in San Antonio with Brene Brown, it would be remiss of me to not share some of my initial thoughts. Now, having worked in the leadership space for a long time now, I look at her work as just so pivotal and foundational to all the other work that is going on. And it's impossible for us to be good leaders if we're not prepared to be courageous. And at the core of being courageous is that ability to be vulnerable. But being vulnerable, it's hard, it's not easy. And certainly we all know that that's something that we struggle with. And I love the quote from Joseph Campbell that she quotes in her work: "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." So the question for you is, what's the cave that you fear to enter? And how is that holding you back? And that's a lovely segue into our conversation today, which is about feast or famine. Because it's very easy to approach work, to approach relationships and what you're doing with a famine mindset. And when you think about it in a highly competitive work environment, people often act as though there's not enough of what I call the 3 R's: resources, rewards, or recognition to go around. And because they don't feel as though there's enough to go around, they use that famine mindset. They're hoarding access to people, to ideas, to resources, because they feel as though if they share it, that's somehow going to diminish their ability to be successful. And they think that the more they have, the easier it is for them to be able to get successful. The more resources they have, the easier it's going to be to get things done. The more rewards they have, the greater the return on investment they're going to have. And the more recognition they get, the easier it is for them to rise up through the ranks. But the problem with that type of approach is that if you are always worried that if someone getting something means you don't get something in return, and that it's going to diminish you, you're working on that sense of almost like a zero-sum game. And eventually, that's going to impact your ability to connect with people, your ability to build relationships. And it has huge implications for how you work, because you're going to be approaching conversations, approaching negotiations with the intent of you getting as much as you can. And you're therefore going to be less willing to collaborate, less willing to think about the needs of other people, because the focus is about you and about what you need. I love the quote from the American novelist and poet Wendell Berry, who said, "If you start a conversation with the assumption that you're right and that you must win, then it's obviously difficult to talk." But in contrast, if you have a feast mindset, if you have that type of mindset where you see a work environment which is filled with plenty of opportunity and that there is enough to go around, you're going to approach things differently, because you're going to look to expand relationships. You're going to look to collaborate with others. And you're doing that with the intent of securing joint outcomes, good outcomes. And you're not just considering what you want and what you need, but you're considering what other people need. And you're entering those conversations and negotiations, trying to find that middle ground. And when you're doing that, you're reframing the conversation, because it's less about everything about you. It's much more about, how do we both walk away feeling satisfied? How do we both walk away thinking, hey, this is enough for both of us? And by doing that, you're taking a long-term view of relationships. You're recognizing that people have different needs, and you're also accepting that someone else getting what they need and what they want doesn't mean that you lose out. So next time you're entering a negotiation or a difficult conversation, there's a couple of questions to think about. What are the needs of the other person? Secondly, what are my needs? Because your needs are still important. How do we best balance and accommodate both of those needs? What does a fair outcome look like? And if I was in the other person's shoes, what would I be looking for and what would I expect? When you start using those questions, what you'll find is that it starts to shift and shape the approach and the conversation that you have, because there really is enough for all of us. Take care, and I'll see you next week.